r/Askreddit by Robotainment. What really obvious thing have you only just realized? I recently realized I was allergic to carrots. I just thought they made everyone's mouth numb, you know, just like almonds. I also learned recently that I have an almond allergy. Same here. Thought that raw hazelnuts don't taste good because they give this weird tingle in your mouth. Found out I had a nut allergy when it suddenly turned from tingle to anaphylaxis, and I ended up in hospital for eating nut chocolate. Super embarrassing, but in college I would order Roman Cokes because I heard everyone else ordering the same. Turns out I misheard everyone and found out it was just rum and Coke. A Roman Coke does sound like a great drink though. Valve released Steam. It took me a long time to realize the pun. That Jessica Rabbit is not a rabbit, but took Roger Rabbit's last name. On a similar vein, as a child I was confused as to why Mary, Kate, and Ashley were referred to as the Olsen twins, and why ads on TV only ever showed two of them at a time, and then 16-year-old me found out about Mary Kate. I live in a part of Chicago called Greektown for 8 years, and never realized the blue and white Christmas lights were meant to represent the colors on their flag. It just dawned on me today. I think Chancellor Palpatine is a Sith Lord. I live in Denmark, so English is not my native language, and I just realized that weekend means the end of the week. The odd thing is that in the US, our calendars are arranged Sunday to Saturday, so it's sort of the weekend, but it's also the week beginning. It was a bit of a surprise when I moved to Denmark and saw calendars arranged Monday to Sunday. The first time I visited the USA I was on my own and in New York and going to all the museums. I kept seeing signs that said no strollers and thought, because we call strollers prams in the UK, that you guys are super strict about the proper amount of attention required to visit a museum. I actually pretended to show more interest than I had and ought not to be thugth as some deadbeat out for a casual stroll. It wasn't until about day 3 that I saw a no stroller sign that included a graphic for idiots. Edit. Woo. Thanks for the gold and silver and 40x the karma. I'm a Brit who got sucked into a holiday job doing door-to-door sales for a MLM company in the US. All the doors with signs saying no solicitors confused me. As I was neither an attorney or a rent boy, I figured I was in the clear. Fortunately, the local police took an afternoon out of my day to explain. I thought astigmatism was astigmatism. So I thought you could have two stigmatisms. And I confused stigmatism with both stigma and stigmata. This girl I know has a dog named Deirdre. 2 years into knowing her and being around Deirdre, I was having a conversation with her sister-in-law, and I said I love the name Deirdre. How did she come up with that? Her sister-in-law responds, Deirdre, and I said yay, it's a neat name. She started laughing and said no, D-O-G. The way you spell dog, I'm still mind blown about this lol. I knew someone whose dog was named S-P-O-T. 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 The Grammys are called that because the awards are gramophones. UHH. Now everything has sense now. That big ships we like got to turn as a kid was not actually controlling the cruise ship. Hide white. When the kids catch their mom kissing Santa Claus, it is because Santa is their dad dressed up, not because Santa and mom have a once yearly torrid affair. Today my friend realized pipe cleaners were originally for cleaning pipes. After I suggested using one to clean a metal straw because it's similar to a pipe. I learned that allspice is actually one spice and not a blend of spices containing cinnamon and nutmeg. Edit. Reworded. I do not think cinnamon and nutmeg are blends. For the longest time, I always thought prima donna was prima donna. When I was a kid, my mom told me my rabbit Rosie went to live on a farm. In my early 20s I saw an episode of The Sopranos where everyone makes fun of Tony when he realizes his dog didn't really go to live on a farm. That's when I realized Rosie had not gone to a farm either. Edit. I would like to officially apologize for the cascading wave of terrible realizations my post has caused. Truly we sit on thrones of lies. Edit 2. It turns out a lot of animals really do get to go live on the farm from the responses here, so that's cool. If it makes you feel any better, I lived on a farm as a kid and took in 2 rabbits. One of my mom's friends was sick of her kids having rabbits, so I got them. They lived a good life. I used to bring them all of the but ends of any vegetables my mom chopped up, and I gave them a lot of ice cubes in the summer. They didn't like to be petted, but they seemed to like it when I read to them. Oh man, I dated a girl once who started telling me about her old dog, who went to live on a farm. I didn't even say anything, but just the look on my face made her stop and think about it for the first time and go oh no. We had a good laugh about that, but it was pretty wild to see the realization in real time. For a long time I thought to bust a nut meant that you were going to kick a guy in the balls or beat him up. So anytime I was getting worked up or angry talking about some guy, I would say I'm going to bust his fucking nut, not knowing the real meaning. Nobody ever said anything, but it was always followed by my friends laughing. So I assumed it was because I was being dramatic. Years go by and my coworker is telling me about some rude person he met, and I said, you should definitely bust that guy's nut, to which he paused and said, do you even know what that means? Suffice it to say I was extremely embarrassed and horrified when he explained it to me. Edit. Oh wow. Thank you for the silver. Glad my first silver had to do with busting a nut. Peas. For those who are asking, to bust a nut, where I'm from, means to ejaculate everywhere or jerk someone else off. Edit 2. Gold. Wowee. I'm glad this made people laugh. Feeling much better knowing a lot of other folks made similar mistakes. Ahaha. The houses in Bikini Bottom are car mufflers. Bikini Bottom is named after the nuclear bomb testing sites, and the sea life is weird from the radiation. Also, bikinis are named after the radioactive site as well. That to take off the plastic piece on top of deodorant, you just simply twist the bottom a few times. Lmayo. No. I must bite. That Mitchell and Jello's David is David from David and Goliath. How did I not know this? I thought it was just dude called Dave. Edit. I love how many of you just learned this today or very recently and just thought he was some dude called Dave too. We got there in the end, guys. Better late than never. Edit. I never knew there was a sling. I thought it was his trousers. Yes, I honestly thought that. Never saw the rocks. Edit. I'm gonna need some more Daves not here. Man comments before this post is complete that they put measurement stickers next to gas station doors so if a robber is running out of the store you can get a better estimate of their height. I always thought they were just there for something fun to do on road trip stops. More than that, they are not actually accurate if you stand against them and measure that way. They are supposed to be placed so the camera will show the correct height of the person, compensating for the angle of the camera. Not me, but my husband just understood that Q is pronounced Q and not key. His mind was blown. I have to remind myself key is pronounced key, not quay, so this made me do a double take. Oh, you want a freaking doozy? For years, I did not realize it was Mike Myers playing both Austin Powers and Dr. Evil. I don't know how I missed it, but it never twigged that it was the same actor. Felt like a right royal twat when that was pointed out to me. It's called a department store because there are, wait for it, separate departments within the one store. I had a sudden clarence moment with that one recently. I'm in my 50s. I grew up in a rural area north of New York City. I'm a veteran. I'm reasonably intelligent, reasonably well traveled. I've been hearing and repeating this expression on and off for all of my life. Friend/acquaintance 1. Hey, man, see you soon. Friend/acquaintance 2. Not if I see you first, smirk. It's just within the last few years that I realized that's almost always joking. Kind jab at friend/acquaintance 1. It was so ritualized as a way to say goodnight to a buddy that it never occurred to me that it meant that the friend would choose to avoid the other person. I knew a woman who told a story about how she was attending a family gathering, and when her dad arrived she said to him as she walked up to give him a hug, "Hey there. Is that a banana in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me?" Everybody in the room just looked at her in shock and then burst out laughing. She had heard the expression, but just never thought about what it meant, so she thought it was just a quirky way to say hello lol. I didn't know the characters on Family Guy had accents. Live in New England watching with my wife not from here, and she says wow they really nailed the accents. I say what accents? Blew my mind when she explained not everyone talks like that. Lmayo. People keep praising the latest Spider-Man for his accurate Queen's accent, but I don't hear it. that the Houston Astros name comes from astronauts, and the Baltimore Ravens are because Edgar Allan Poe lived and is buried in Baltimore. Cruella de Vil was a cruel devil. The word for explorer in Spanish is exploradora. Dora the Explorer, a Spanish play on words. Edit. I know it's supposed to be a play on words. It's a typo. I think it's a funny coincidence with the theme of the thread, where people are realizing they've been misusing expressions. I'm going to leave it. Also, maybe someone did write a Spanish play on words featuring Dora the Explorer. The villain in Halloween is not played by Michael Myers. The only person who didn't think I had a drinking problem was me. A car accident resulting in a DUI and court-mandated rehab shined that light on me. Luckily I found out before I killed someone or myself. I've been almost year clean and feel pretty okay. Edit. Just one detail I didn't mention. I had the car a week and had been saving for it for a year. So basically threw away a year's worth of saved money and my insurance was bare minimum. So it was a total loss. Principal Belding from Saved by the Bell is named Belding. Saw a place labeled as public house when I moved nearby recently. It was at that moment I realized, oh, that's why they call them pubs. It's short for public house. In Russian phrase, public house means a whorehouse, not a pub. I wonder. Personal injury lawyer commercials play more frequently during daytime TV because their clientele is injured, stuck at home, and watching daytime TV. Phineas and Ferb are shaped like a P and an F. Oh. The reason the cord hook on the vacuum spins is so you can take the whole cord off at once instead of unraveling it one loop at a time, like I have been my whole life. Edit. I learned how to spell cord today. I realized that to be in one's birthday suit it means to be without clothes. I thought for the longest time it was a specific set of clothes you would wear on your birthday each year. I found out when I asked, what happens when you don't fit in your birthday suit anymore? Lol. Stretch marks happen. Edit. Thank you, kind strangers. My first awards. My bedroom door was broke, and I finally got around to fixing it. Thought the knob was broke cause it was pushed in towards the door, so I pulled it out and realized that was how you lock the door. As a small child, like maybe age 4, my family told me the powder room door at my grandparents' house didn't lock. I had a reputation for accidentally locking myself into places, so they didn't want me locking myself in there, I guess. I was 18 before I accidentally locked the door just like that, realized how it worked and emerged from the bathroom mortified and amused that I had gone all those years thinking the door just didn't lock. No one even remembered lying to me about the lack of lock. I kept seeing the same Chinese characters on restaurant signs and I always wanted to know what it meant. A week ago I found out they mean restaurant. Not just now, but I think it applies. I'm currently in my mid-30s. I didn't realize until I was about 28 years old that my mom's name was Betty and her sister's name was Wilma. Betty and Wilma. From the Flintstones. And yes, they were definitely named after the cartoon. I asked. Flash forward 2 years later, my aunt Wilma informed me that they were fraternal twins. Again, another thing for 30 years I had not known. Edit. A few folks have asked for a bit of context on the twin thing. My mom died when I was fairly going, so I never had her birthday as a thing. I wasn't super close to Wilma, so I wasn't really celebrating hers either. I guess it was just known in my family, so nobody ever mentioned it until totally randomly she said something about it on the name thing. They actually both went by nicknames their whole lives, so I never even thought of them as Betty and Wilma, but just Mom and Aunt Cookie she likes to bake. Learned from a similar thread, but I was 40 years old before I realized that there is an arrow indicating what side the gas cap is on by the gas gauge. Or, for cars that do not have the arrow, the gas cap is on the side the gauge is on. The lead singer of Blur is the lead singer of Gorillaz. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. I realized the opposite. I was a Gorillaz fan before I was a Blur fan. One day, I heard Coffee and TV and thought to myself, this sounds a bit like a Gorillaz song. I became a Blur fan that day. I was a voracious reader and was way ahead of the curve during school, but didn't realize until age 50 that there are two discretes. One website said the trick to remembering them is the two letters stay next to each other when they want to whisper a secret. Hold up. What's the other one mean, then? That this post already has 7 gold, but 13 upvotes and 23 comments. Life is so much better when you stop reading YouTube comments. This sounds ridiculous, but I recently found out about the term knee-jerk reaction. My whole life I had been saying it how I heard it, and just figured it was spelled something like knee-jerk reaction, like it was some psychology term. My whole life I thought pay-per-view was actually pay-per-view, because I had only ever heard people say it, and only recently saw it written out. When I realize words I use all the time are painfully literal in their meaning. For example, breakfast implies you are literally breaking your fast. Afternoon is after the noon hour. I feel that, when I find words like these, I've had an radical realization. But, I'm just dense. I should graduated in college by now. Username checks out. My friend 22Y.0 only realized last year that dolphins have to swim and live in the water to survive. He thought they're land mammals, but they just really like to swim for fun. What? How? How would they even function on land? Your mate really didn't think that one through. Okay, this was a couple of years ago, but it was something I realized way too late in my life. You're supposed to use a towel to dry yourself after a shower. I was just wrapping it around myself and sitting/walking around in it until I air dried. Last time I remember this question asked there was a guy that didn't realize you could wait until the water got hot to get in the shower. He hated how it always starts so cold. My upvote is symbolic of a pat on the head. That the phrase mint condition means like new, because it's the condition coins leave the mint in. I'm never 0% responsible for my issues. I'm always 100% responsible. English is not my first language, so I was mind blown when I realized how keys, kiss, he's, his, this, these, etc. differed in sound pronunciation. I first noticed this when I told my boyfriend I wanted a keys and he looked very confused lol. Now I try my best to pronounce them properly. Edit. Grammar. Pancakes are cakes made in a pan. I thought they were invented by a guy named Pan until this morning. I'm gonna blow your fucking mind. German chocolate cake is not named after the country. It's an American cake named after a guy whose last name is German. Its roots can be traced back to 1852 when American baker Samuel German developed a type of dark baking chocolate for the Baker's Chocolate Company. The brand name of the product, Baker's German Sweet Chocolate, was named in honor of him. N.M Wikipedia.org link. Not that that's fucking confusing or anything. The song It's Getting Hot in Here isn't actually talking about here temperature. I felt very stupid. Nelly was a groundbreaking climate activist. Cilantro and coriander are the same plant. One time I was at a restaurant with a friend, sharing salsa and chips. I commented that the salsa had a very strong cilantro flavor, and she commented she couldn't taste anything other than coriander. We debated the issue for a few minutes, in disbelief that the other person was tasting something completely different, and couldn't pick up on the taste the other thought was prominent. When I saw coriander seeds at the store a few weeks later, I bought them to see what taste she had been talking about, and then the truth clicked. That a skirt and a dress are two different things. I'm 42. That calling someone simple is just a nice way of calling someone stupid. Wife informed me of this after 28 years of my grandma calling me simple. I realized at the age of 26 that narwhals are real because they were on an Octonauts episode. I walked into the room and was like, I thought they only do real animals on this show. Then the kid's dad said, you're joking, right? SNL cast members are listed in alphabetical order in the opening credits. Have been watching for 30 years. You know how Will Smith moves to LA in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because he gets in a little scrap with some neighborhood troublemakers and his mother sends him across the nation in fear. That's because they were gang members. Will Smith was a young black man in West Philadelphia in the early 90s, and he easily could have been killed for insulting some gang members. One of the goofiest shows ever aired was based on the duality of a boy who was sheltered by his incredibly affluent family after he was forced to flee his home for fear of being shot by gang members. Real shit, man. I also thought he took a cab all the way from Philly to LA until I saw an older episode with the uncut intro that showed his plane flight before the cab ride. It's for all intents and purposes, not for all intensive purposes. How did I not recognize what I'm saying? Just doesn't make sense. That my girlfriend's name is actually spelled Kahaya. I really though it was spelled Kaya. Luckily she never found this fact out. This is not your fault. Her parents are bad people. For how long did this go on? I learned that what comes out of the penis isn't just sperm. It's a mix of fluids produced in your prostate, mixed with sperm. For some reason I always thought that it was just thousands of cells. I even knew that they had a tail for swimming, and I couldn't put two and two together. I've been lied to my whole life. I'm now better off as a male. Edit. My best comment is about jizz. Cheers Reddit. Never change. The sperm is made in the testicles. The semen is a liquid that contains sperm as well as secretions from the prostate and seminal vesicle. How old were you when you realized this? That Ecuador is named after the equator. That the clock icon on iOS actually tells the time and the hands move. I only recently learned that a strip mall was not a really large strip club. And now, coming up to the stage is JC Penny. Put your hands together for her, guys. She's inexpensive but of moderate quality and decent to have hanging off you day to day. Next up is Massey. She's pretty, but most people can't get by the smell of too much perfume coming off of her in waves. Up until last year I thought Nat Geo was a person. I then realized it was short for National Geographic. Nathaniel Giartopoulos actually was a founder of the channel, but it's only a coincidence. I must have been around 11 to 12 years old when I realized that in order of appearance during the end credits of movie doesn't list the actors/actresses by who is the most good looking. DC is not in Washington state. Yeah, I know. Alucard from Castlevania is Dracula backwards. That people on Reddit give awards to the most random stuff. No offense to you though mate. I find it as bizarre as you do. No offense taken. I realized when I was 16 reindeer were real. I 100% thought they were fake like elves and Santa Claus. Edit. Claus to Claus hatter on mobile my B. That when I was a kid and my dad would take me to the video store on Friday nights and he would go into the back room where only adults were allowed, that he was looking at porn. Undergarments and socks are there to cover places that sweat and stink, so that you don't sweat and stink on the thing on top of the undergarment and can replace the undergarment more often. I learned a couple years ago that it's not the mayor of bad news, it's actually the bearer of bad news. I'm 25. Thick. The two CCs are meant to look like butt cheeks. Hol up. I think that's probably just a coincidence but cool nonetheless. Like how bed looks like a bed. News is just the plural of new. It is not an acronym for notable events, weather, and sports. OHHOHHOHH. My time to shine. So I'm an instructor in the army. I routinely teach new soldiers how to be mechanics. Specifically how to maintain the M1 or 2 Abrams tank. I teach these soldiers how to troubleshoot complex electrical systems. Last week I realized that one of my students was constantly mispronouncing the word continuity as continuity. It was driving me nuts. And then I realized that technically they weren't mispronouncing it. They were just emphasizing the root word, and that I never realized that continuity, a lack of resistance in a circuit, meant that the circuit was a continuous circuit. It continued, continue, itty, FML. I'm a shitty teacher. Aluminum foil box. On each end there are 2 tabs that you push in, so the foil actually stays anchored in place. Vaginas are called beavers because they eat wood. I used to always pour water into our coffee maker 1 glass at a time. It was such a pain in the ass, especially to fill the reservoir to the number of cups I wanted. Until I realized I could just fill the carafe with water, which has the exact same measurements, and pour the water in that way. that the Volkswagen logo is a V over a W. I always just assumed it was random lines that made cool shapes. This is pretty sad considering I drive one. Not just now, I'm 53. But I was 50 when I realized that the little piggy that went to market wasn't fucking shopping. That you have to add a can of water to Campbell's soup. Apparently I've been drinking straight condensed soup. Don't let people lie to you. Eat it straight from the can. Not me, but my cousin realized a few months ago that cheese does not, in fact, grow in caves. Edit. Words. This is about to get weirder for you, then. In the early 1900s, the dairy industry was starting to flounder and worsened during the Great Depression. People weren't buying enough butter and cheese. The US government proposed buying up some of the excess production to keep dairy farmers subsidized, and so they had an excess of cheese. They gave away government cheese, but even then, it was too much. As growth hormones raised milk production, the government decided to bury excess cheese and butter in caves throughout the mountains of Missouri. TL. Dr. Cheese caves are real thanks to the US government. www.google.com link. www.google.com link. At Bloker Stack right now I have 3. That babies and plants both require a ton of care in both live in a place called a nursery. I'm very mentally ill. I need a lot of therapy that I never received after coming out of a mental hospital in 2017. Centurions were so named because they commanded 100 men. Me and my best friend have known each other since primary school and have done everything together for about 5 years now. They even come to our family reunions and all family events. Just found out that they're my cousin. Good day to learn that there means they are too. Not all phone numbers have the same area code. I'm 17 years old, and I just realized this past month or so that not all phone numbers begin with the same 3 numbers. I'm a moron. I recently learned that Alaska is not an island. Last year I learned the game tag is an acronym for touch and go, edited, and today I unlearned it. Well, you didn't learn it earlier, because that idea was invented whole cloth in 2018. www.snopes.com link. That's what we in the business call a backronym. After telling my wife about an a-hole duck that had taken up residence on the roof of my office building, this conversation followed. Word for word. Wife. How did it get up there? Me. It flew. Wife. No, really. How did it get up there? Me. Is this a prank or something? It flew. Wife. Ducks can't fly. Me. Wait. What? Do you really think ducks can't fly? Wife. They can't. Stop messing with me. Aside, I have been known to plant false facts on her and just leave them there to rattle around in her brain until she hopefully uses one in a conversation someday. So this was a fair concern. Me. Have you never heard of a flying V? That's ducks migrating. Wife. Ducks can fly? Miles per hour. It took an entire childhood into adulthood for me to realize that one. The app Tinder is called Tinder because it means to spark a flame. Just like sparking a love interest. There is even a fire symbol. I felt stupid lol. The Y in Y2K stands for year. The digital speedometer on my campus doesn't work at night because it's solar powered. Edit. Spelling. That the word lemonade contains the word lemon. As a non-native speaker they were 2 completely different things for me from a language perspective. A decade or so ago, but I was in my mid to late 20s, I was looking at my wife in a mirror and asked if she could see me. She could. I moved to the side more, looked at her in the mirror again, and asked if she could see me now. You know that if you can see me in a mirror I can see you, right? So obvious, and yet it blew my fucking mind. Bonus. I was walking down the street one day after high school and my brain suddenly pipes up, oh, it's not just funny because they were both named Daryl, but because why would parents name 2 kids the same name? In my defense I was very young when I watched Newhart reruns. This thought popped into my head probably 10 or so years after I'd last seen an episode. Like and subscribe for good luck, you handsome gentleman.